At long last, conference play is officially upon us. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Windup. I am Chris Phillips. He is Harrison Fant. We're talking all things first that took place in the midweek, but breaking down a jam-packed weekend. Weekend number one of conference play in the best conference in all of college baseball, locking in our preview predictions and breaking down everything you need to know going into the weekend. Once again, folks, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast where you get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. And as always, we're powered by our friends over at FANDUEL. Visit FANDUEL.com/SECU to join today and get started with $150 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Once again, that's FANDUEL.com/SECU to get $150 in bonus bets today. Once again, this is the Windup, SEC Unfiltered's bi-weekly college baseball show. As always, I am Chris Phillips. I am joined by Harrison Fant. Once again, we are breaking down what went down in the midweek this week, as well as conference play. It is finally here, SEC weekend, opening weekend. 10 straight await us. The men will be separated from the boys, and it starts this weekend. And what a jam-packed slate we have got. Once again, guys, I'm Chris Phillips, joined by my good friend Harrison Fant. Harrison, what's going on, man? Appreciate you taking the time. Really excited to dive into this with you.
Chris, glad to be here. And we are finally here, Chris. SEC baseball conference play. The most anticipated thing of the season, I think, to this point, let alone opening day, now that that's passed. But we get the best teams in the country going head-to-head every single week now. As we know, the SEC is what rules college baseball. The national championship, 5 straight champions from the SEC by different schools each year. Could we see a 6th this year? It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise you, but we know we got to go through the gauntlet of the SEC, and we're stoked to be here to cover every single week of it for you and break everything down.
Yeah, and Harrison, like I was telling you off here, you're obviously decked out in the College World Series stuff. I think you're ready to hop on the plane and get to Omaha.
I mean, the ticket, baby.
Go ahead and book it. I mean, we know we're going to be there, but to your point, I mean, looking way too far ahead. I mean, at this point, it would be more of an upset if an SEC team did not win the national championship. Certainly, anything can happen. College baseball is crazy, but I mean, the way the league is shaping up at this point. But again, this is what is exciting. We're going to find out really who's who starting this weekend. Harrison, before we dive into it again, we've got 8 great series to talk about, breakdown. We're going to lock in our picks as well for each of these. Let's talk about what happened over the midweek, Harrison, because certainly some notable results over the midweek, and the most notable of all, the Florida Gators, a team that struggled so mightily in the midweek last year, especially against this team specifically, the Florida State Seminoles. They go into Tallahassee, and I thought Harrison really dominated. I mean, the pitching was really good all night. Billy Barlow, who, you see how valuable that acquisition was, Harrison, right? They struggled in the midweek a lot because they were throwing a bunch of freshmen and inexperienced guys, and, things compounded in the midweek, and mistakes obviously kind of added up. You bring in a guy like Billy Barlow from Clemson, super experienced, has pitched on the weekends. He was fantastic. He was up to 97. I had not seen that from him. Obviously, he was amped up. He was juiced up a little bit, being in a rivalry game, but he was really, really good. They threw McNeely. They threw Phillips at the end. You could tell that game mattered a lot to them. And talking to folks down there, especially after last year, that one was really important. Florida State, obviously, again, one of the best teams in college baseball. They kept mentioning, I think it was obviously a FSU broadcast because it was at FSU, but they kept mentioning, FSU's 15-0. They haven't trailed in a game. They haven't done this. They haven't done that. Well, they ran into a buzzsaw, one of the best teams in the country, and Florida made them pay. Our guy Colby Shelton with a big home run in that game as well. A 7-2 win for the Gators, really a complete performance. And I tell you what, you talk about a momentum-building performance. Florida, the biggest winners in the midweek, easily.
Yeah, Chris, absolutely, for all the same reasons. And, what this rivalry, I think, means after what you said, what last season and how that kind of happened, but you get to go into Tallahassee against your rival, a team that, you're neck and neck with in the rankings, talent-wise, up and down the board, and you get the chance to knock off them, give them their first loss of the season. You absolutely want to do so. And, a lot of those guys, I think, This year, it feels like more than other years cared about doing that more. And I think doing it on the road too, get to do it in their house and, Mike Martin Stadium, I believe it's called, or Mike Martin Field, whichever one it is. But, to do that. And like you said, I mean, headlined by Billy Barlow, just the pickup and acquisition that he's been, I think let alone a talent level, but just the presence in the clubhouse. And then you have guys, Luke McNeely pitched outstanding, 4 strikeouts in 2 innings, no runs, 1 hit, right? Jackson Barbie pitched great. He picked up the win. He had 3 Ks. I mean, and Alex Philpott took care of business in the end as well to slam the door shut. But, the offense just throughout the game, putting pressure on Florida State, it felt like throughout, and creating opportunities for them to score. And, like I said, the pitching side taking care of business on their end. And, you hand Florida State their first loss of the season and have a ton of momentum, even more than they have already had. And as much as we've talked about them, hyped them up, and have talked about how much the real deal Florida is this year, more than anyone else in the country, any other outlet, we've talked about how talented this roster is up and down on both sides of the ball. They have an unbelievably large amount of momentum after beating a rival and giving them their first loss as they head on the road to Knoxville to go face a top 2 team in the Tennessee Volunteers. I mean, it sets up for an unbelievable kickoff for SEC play. And I mean, we're stoked, Chris. I'm so stoked for it. I'm looking forward to that series, I think, most of all this weekend. I think a lot of people could say the same. So we're going to get a lot of great series throughout, but that's definitely got to be the headline for sure.
Yeah, that's the headliner, no doubt. And to your point, Harrison, we've gotten the question, or at least I've seen the question on social media. Why is everybody sleeping on Florida? Nobody's talking about the Gators. You made the point, and I'd made the point. We not only have we talked about them, not only have we talked about them, I literally went down there a few weeks ago, and we, gave as much love as possible. And again, this is no surprise to us. Nobody here is sleeping on Florida or doesn't realize how good they are. But this is a team, interesting enough, kind of still feels like they're sort of flying under the radar. Yeah, I mean, listen, I thought the Gators were really impressive. I think, too, you mentioned just last year, the midweek woes. Now look at what they're doing this year. Wildly impressive yet again. And, I mean, again, Harrison, talking to folks down there, talking to their staff, if you will, they felt like they should have 10-run ruled them. And if you look back, if you watch the game, I mean, they did have opportunities. They had bases loaded. No outs, got 1 run. They had second and third, nobody out. They got no runs out of it. So they could have. I mean, they really could have run ruled them. And on a bit of a side note, Harrison, obviously we're SEC show, but again, talking to them, going to be really interesting if you just like college baseball to follow the status of Jamie Arnold, because apparently Link Jarrett saying he may not pitch again this week. I think last week they said he was sick, but to miss a second straight week, it's something to keep an eye on.
And Florida knows a lot about that recently with their injuries with Pierce Capala, Jake Clemente, obviously after losing.
That's the big, Jones, and that's the big thing for them. They're essentially just saying, we just can't sustain any more injuries, because it sounds like Jake Clemente potentially, they're probably going to be we'll get into this more in the Tennessee series when we talk about that series itself. TBD probably on Sunday with Jake Clemente dealing with some back stuff. We obviously know about Cade Curlin at second base. He's going to be out. Kyle Jones is going to be out. So they got a few, they don't want to sustain, can't really afford to sustain any more injuries. But that Jamie Arnold one is I was very intrigued by that, hearing that. So again, from a college baseball perspective, I'm very curious to see, because that's the best pitcher in the country when he's going. So
yeah, definitely number 1 arm off the board.
Yeah,
if he's healthy for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. Harrison, the rest of the midweek slate, some notables. Ole Miss gets upset by South Alabama, and the game wasn't really close. Alabama outlasts a scrappy UAB team. They score late to win that one. I believe the score was 6-3 in that. Oklahoma handling a pretty solid Louisiana Tech team. I mean, a good program at least. And in a game that you and I talked about, South Carolina, Georgia State. It was 1-0 Georgia State, I think like the 3rd or 4th inning. Thought maybe the upset was in play. Give the Gamecocks credit. They pull away in that one, and they win that ball game over Georgia State at Founders Park. I threw a lot at you there, Harrison, but anything else that really jumped out to you, stood out for the midweek? Because, again, hashtag midweeks matter, but we're not going to overreact to, for example, when Ole Miss, I mean, they did get blown out. Pitching failed you in the midweek. I should also mention Georgia beating East Tennessee State. That was a game that was really looked forward to, and, an 8-6 ball game. The bats come alive for the Dogs again. ETSU, we knew they're one of the best in the country in homers as well. Tennessee had a really close contest with West Georgia, 4-2, which is sort of odd for them. They're typically scoring 20 runs, it seems, in a midweek. But and then Texas A&M,
maybe you never know.
Yeah, maybe saving it for the weekend. Then Texas A&M getting a big 14-0 win over Prairie View A&M. What I saw of that game, Prairie View just could not. When it got to ball 13, right? Which ball 13 doesn't quite roll off the tongue like ball 5 does, but shout out to the Aggies for making it work there at Bluebell. But anything else?
Imagine pitching in Bluebell, hearing ball 13.
Yeah. Yeah. The video
it's no
was
wonder it got up that high.
The video, yeah, they were, every time I turned that game on, Prairie View was just walking another guy. So, any other major takeaways, thoughts on the midweek, Harrison, before we dive into this epic weekend slate?
I think my most frustrating thing, Chris, and I'll be short and sweet on all of these, is just I have beef with Georgia and ETSU now after saying to hammer the over on 2 of the top 3 slugging teams in the country, statistically, home runs per game, total home runs in the country, and over under, Chris, 14 and a half for the game. Final score, 8-6. That's 14 runs. ETSU was trying their best, though. 3 in the 9th. But, I mean, I think you see a lot. You learn a lot from a team like ETSU, and Georgia's just, in another dogfight, slugging it out. But, I mean, you have guys like JT Quinn, who has weekend experience at Ole Miss, and just, him coming back, he threw to 3 batters, clean 1 frame, right, in the first, and then you have just 1-1-1-1-1 for the rest of the game. No one else giving up more than 1 run or 1 hit, except for Brian Zeldin in the 9th inning, which that was a little concerning for me. But the bats did exactly what you kind of expected from them. Other than that, I mean, Ole Miss, I guess, not really using high leverage guys. Obviously, it's South Al going in there, trying to do damage and, taking it as seriously as possible. And I think just, a spot that they were looking to create a lot of havoc and, pressure on Ole Miss against guys that, aren't their weekend bullpen arms or whatnot. And, props to them for doing that. Alabama beating out a scrappy UAB team in a tough contest, at a midweek, I think, especially, in state. And then Oklahoma taking care of business in the midweek against a really solid Louisiana State team, or Louisiana Tech team, excuse me. And I think you're trying to roll on a high note, because that's what a lot of these SEC teams want. You don't want to save a lot of your guys. You don't want to use, high leverage guys in the midweek, but you want to get guys opportunities that could be midweek, from midweek to the weekend kind of jump or situation guys on the weekend. Get them opportunities, but you want to roll on a high note like Florida's doing right now. Alabama rolling good as well. South Carolina takes down a solid Georgia State club. So a lot of teams with a lot to look forward to going into SEC play. And this is when the real season starts, Chris. So anything can happen. And it's pretty much a clean slate, I'd say.
Yeah, it's essentially a new season, right?
It really is.
What you've done up to this point, it matters. I'm not going to say it doesn't matter, obviously, but as we're going to talk about, you could be 9-6 right now, like some teams are in the SEC, and you had all this preseason hype, and maybe you haven't lived up to it to this point. But man, if you go 20-10 or 21-9, that will become a distant memory real fast. And on the flip side, you could be undefeated right now, but if you go 13-17 in conference play, well, nobody's going to be bragging about how good you were against the non-conference slate. So this is when the real season begins, Harrison. We're going to go through all 8 of these conference series. Before we do, though, guys, I want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel, because as always, we're brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. And it's March Madness, not just on the diamond, of course, with conference play getting going, but of course on the hardwood, guys. We got conference tournaments. We got the NCAA tournament just around the corner. This bracket season, FanDuel is letting you make the call, because right now new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to bet on everything from clutch shots to last-second heartbreaks, and even who's cutting down the nets. If you've been waiting to join, there's no better time. There's tourney action almost every day, and FanDuel has amazing bet types like spreads, totals, game props, and so much more. And guys, again, we're going to be betting on it all. We're dropping our best bets, myself and Dave Shoemate, who's our lead basketball analyst at SEC Unfiltered, for the conference tournament, for the NCAA tournament. Heck, we're going to have spreads and lines, and I can't wait to see what they are, Harrison, for conference play in baseball. That's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you're tailing us, you're fading us, whatever you want to do. I would suggest you tail us, because we're having some success right now.
Hey,
but either way, we know ball indeed. So again, whatever you do, just make sure you visit FanDuel.com/SECU and get in on the college hoops action all tourney long. Must be 21 and up in present select states or 18 and up and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering unique sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE NY, in New York. Harrison, let's delay no longer because conference weekend number 1 is officially upon us. You might notice, too, you mentioned a new season. When it came to titling this, I was like, we could label this as weekend number 5, but it's conference weekend number 1. That's the way I look at it, right? Like you said,
Agreed.
The preseason's kind of in the books.
The men separate themselves from the boys.
The conference season has gotten here. The men will separate themselves from the boys. So, again, we're going to dive into all 8 of these, talk a little bit, make our picks. And we're going to start, Harrison, like you mentioned, with the headliner. The number 2 ranked Tennessee Volunteers, Lindsey Nelson Stadium, will welcome the number 7 Florida Gators, fresh off their midweek win over a top 10 Florida State Seminoles ball club. Harrison, this one's going to be epic. This one's going to be epic for so many different reasons. I'm excited from both perspectives. I think for Tennessee, obviously another opportunity. They had a big non-conference weekend going into that tournament in Houston. They dominated, right? I mean, I think they let everybody know. They've been the hottest team, you could argue, in the country. Hey, they are. There's no argument. They're the last undefeated team in the country. Florida has an opportunity to knock off another undefeated, right? It was Tennessee and Florida State. They beat Florida State Tuesday. Now they roll into Rocky Top. They can end Tennessee's perfect streak, right? There's so many different storylines here. There's so many different angles we can take. But, Harrison, I'll pass it to you. I'll just simply say this. Man, this is good on good. I mean, this is elite on elite. These are 2 of the top teams in the country, not just the SEC, and I cannot wait. I will be glued to the TV all 3 games watching this series play out.
Absolutely, Chris. I completely agree. I think it's, like I said, the most exciting weekend series of the season. I think up until this point, the most anticipated one as well, with 2, which I think should be top 5 teams in the country. With Tennessee should be number 1. I have them number 1, and Florida being a top 5 team, I think, as well, talent-wise. Obviously they have the injuries, but you're going on the road. You're going to a hostile environment, Chris. I was there for opening weekend for Tennessee, and I mean, students were coming out to pack the student section opening weekend against no one.
Even more hostile with the upgrades. Even more hostile. They're fitting more people in there.
Still working on it. Yep. Still working on it. It should all be done by, I think, before the end of the 2026 season. But, I mean, the concourse looks great. There's a lot more room still for, just for standing room only. But it's going to be a hostile environment, I think. And you're the defending national champions. You have a tone to set in the SEC. And I think Tennessee has all the pieces to do that on the hitting side, the pitching side, off the bench in the dugout, the coaching side with Tony Vitello and his staff. And just the mindset-wise of this ball club to set the tone that we're here, we're the defending national championship team. We're coming back to make it back to Omaha and repeat. And that's the tone they want to set. And there's no better way to do so than against a insanely talented team like Florida on your home turf. And it's going to be an electric weekend. I'm praying the weather holds up. It's going to be so much fun to watch. The ball is going to be flying. The ball is going to be spinning off the mound because we got some absolute studs throwing heat, touching triple digits with, I mean, insanely high RPM spin, curveball, sliders, splitters, everything, you name it. You're going to see best on best in every aspect of the game. And I mean, I'm stoked for it, Chris. This is my favorite series, like I said, so far this season to watch.
A lot of scouts going to be at Lindsey Nelson this weekend.
A lot of radar guns, a lot of notes, a lot of stopwatches. You'll see it all in Lindsey Nelson.
There's a lot of future, I would probably say, big league talent that'll be on that field this weekend. It starts, Harrison, too. Again, of course, as you guys know, tuned in, we'll be live Friday Night Spikes. Man, just reflecting on the showdown that we just watched, the Battle of the Liams. We've kind of had the debate all season long, who are the best aces in the SEC. These are 2 of the best. You got Liam Doyle for Tennessee, Liam Peterson for Florida. Dude, there's going to be, I think, a lot of offense this week, and especially, Harrison, as we go throughout the weekend. And I think both of these teams have questions on Sunday, who's going to go on Sunday. Bullpen depth is always a thing. We've seen Florida's bullpen kind of falter in that Miami series. And both of these teams have great offenses, 1 through 9, super deep. But, man, I will be surprised if Friday night is anything other than this good old-fashioned SEC Friday night, 2-1, 3-2 kind of game. I'm so pumped to watch these 2 dudes duke it out. Again, 2 of the best, 2 guys that we've had debates about, Harrison, about where do they rank amongst the very best aces in the conference.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think it's going to be a slugfest, but the runs that do score, they're going to be absolute blast of doubles, like exit velos, 100+ in home runs. But like you said, with Sunday, TBD for Tennessee expected to be. Talking to some sources of mine, I believe, I don't think we're going to see AJ Russell, but it wouldn't surprise me. I think it would surprise a lot of people, but that would be really cool to see him come back and do that this soon after, come back from his injury. But I mean, I don't think it'll be him, Chris. I don't know what your kind of guess and senses of, but I mean, I think it'd be Arvidsson, honestly. I think he's going to step in that Sunday role. I expect him to kind of take that this weekend and roll with it, but who knows? Tony Vitello, well, he'll put his best foot forward. He'll put his best guys out there. Best chance to win this weekend against and set the tone for the SEC, I think, across the board.
Both guys, again, both teams on Sunday. I think there's a chance Billy Barlow gets the baseball for Florida. I mean, they pulled him out of that Tuesday game pretty quickly, I think, for that exact reason.
Yeah. I'm Sunday's going to be interesting, I think, across the board this weekend. But I think Tennessee will use a lot of guys on Sunday, depending on how the series goes. But I don't think that, there's been nothing put out about who Tennessee's going to start on Sunday, but I think a lot of teams will have TBA. The weather at Knoxville as well. I know Texas will be dealing with some weather issues as well. You might see double headers, so that could change things around too.
Yeah, and I'm fascinated, too, to see the freshman for Florida, Aiden King, who is going to get the baseball on Saturday. He was fantastic in his first start. Obviously came in relief against Miami. First full start, again, it was against Harvard. But the kid's stuff is legit. And, again, speaking of freshmen, Harrison, we're going to see some of the best freshmen in the conference. Levi Clark for Tennessee, Brendan Lawson for Florida, Aiden King, like I mentioned the bump. I mean, Tennessee's probably got – I know they have freshman arms as well that are elite. So, Harrison, when it comes to this series, again, this is elite on elite. That's exactly what this is. Top 10 series at Lindsey Nelson. We're actually going to get one of these games, Harrison, on the big channel. Saturday night, I believe it's 6 o'clock Eastern time, first pitch. This game is going to be on SEC Network. So how about that? College baseball finally getting some of the respect. It should be on all three games. But
our guy, Cal Peterson, he'll be in Knoxville. I'll see him there.
Yes, he will. Yes, he will. So, again, getting on the big channel. I'm going to kick it to you. We're going to go through, obviously, myself, you, and our guy Jake McKeever as well, all three of us who we're picking. We're going to show you guys the graphic at the end. But Jake McKeever, part of our Pick'em series this year. Harrison, who you got?
Yeah, Chris, I mean, as insanely talented and close as these teams are, Tennessee, Florida, up and down the lineup, up and down the bullpen of arms and on the mound starting, I don't think it's going to be close. I think Tennessee takes 2 of 3. I absolutely think Tennessee takes 2 or 3. Wouldn't surprise me if they don't, but I'm huge on Tennessee in this series. Having the health of a lot more players than Florida has, you lose Kyle Jones, you lose, Pierce Capalla and Jake Clemente, their status and whatnot. And I think the bench is a little bit deeper for Tennessee, and you're playing at home. You're defending national champions. Give me the balls.
I'll tell you this to your point, because Florida has dealt with some injury concerns. I think they're actually going to be better on Saturday with Aiden King. I do. As much as I like Pierce Capalla, and I don't think he's going to be out for the entire season, which is really good news because, I mean, you want all the arms you can, and that's certainly it's a luxury. It's a luxury for them how many arms they have. I think Aiden King is the real deal on Saturday. So from that standpoint, excuse me, I think he's actually going to be an upgrade. Again, Sunday's going to be interesting. Do they go Billy Barlow? Do they go somebody else? Jake Clemente, it sounds like, going to move to the bullpen. What does that look like? Dealing with some back issues. I like, I think Florida and Tennessee's fantastic, by the way. Let me start with that. Tennessee, undefeated for a reason. They might be better, Harrison, than they were last year.
It's definitely worth a discussion.
It's definitely worth a discussion. Again, we'll see like the clutch factor and so many different things go into how good you are when it gets to postseason. I'm not sleeping on Florida, though, man. I've been riding. I think Florida
definitely cannot.
I think Florida's not getting enough respect. I think they're going to come into this weekend with a bit of a chip on their shoulder, a point to prove. Give me the Gators taking 2 out of 3. I think they go into enemy territory. I think Liam Peterson, it's all going to be mental for him. That's the biggest challenge. It's going to be mental. This is going to be the toughest test that Tennessee has faced this season. I think they're going to have something. I think Florida's going to have something of the balls. Give me the Gators taking 2 out of 3, again, into enemy territory. It'll be considered like the upset of the weekend. I don't think it should be. I really don't. I think Florida, like, this is a coin flip type of series. To your point, I will not be surprised if it goes the other way. But I love Florida in this spot. I think Liam Peterson's going to give them one hell of a start on Friday night. Gators have a lot of offense too. It's not just Tennessee 1 through 9 that can mash. I know they've been picking on some lesser than pitching in their midweek games. This Florida team they've been battle tested essentially every single week. People don't realize like how good their midweeks are. They play. They've already taken down a pretty quality Miami team. I love the Gators in this spot.
And a Florida State team now.
Yeah. And a Florida State team now. Luke Heyman, key factor, I think, in this weekend. It seems like he's always coming up with guys and runners in scoring position. Colby Shelton, another one. And I think Brody Donay is going to deposit a ball or two. And listen, I'm not one of those people that buys into the whole Lindsey Nelson Stadium's a Cracker Jack box, but it is hitter friendly. I think Brody Donay is going to take advantage. And again, I like Florida. Give me 2 out of 3. Gators get it done in enemy territory. Our guy Jake as well, taking Tennessee with Harrison. I'm the lone one going with the upset.
A couple of notes to hit on for that. I mean, the Liam battle Friday with Liam Pearson, Liam Doyle is going to be unbelievable to watch, both with sub-1 ERAs. Liam Pearson at 0.86, Liam Doyle at a 0.44. I mean, whiff ranks, Liam Doyle is 4th in the country, and Liam Doyle is 43rd. But, I mean, Tennessee's got 50 home runs. Florida's got 29. Ball is going to be – when it's hit, it's going to be hit so hard, Chris. Everything, like I said, exit velo is going to be 100+ probably, over 80% of the balls in play. I mean, OPS rank, Tennessee's number 1 in the country for a reason. Florida, 14. But, I mean, throw that out all the window if you really want to. But, I mean, like you said, good on good, Chris. We're going to get good on good, if not best on best from these two clubs.
Yeah, Gators chip on the shoulder. That's what I'm riding with. Let's go to College Station, Texas. Harrison, the 19th ranked Texas A&M Aggies take on the 17th ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. This one's a lot more intriguing than I think we thought it was going to be in the preseason. I think most of us looked at the schedule and said, okay, Bama's solid, but A&M's going to be the easy favorite. This is one of the most fascinating series of the weekend. Like you mentioned, Harrison, the new season begins. And if you're Texas A&M, you better hope that narrative is true, because you're 9-6 right now. You have had, I mean, is it too bold to say it's been a nightmare start? Like, I think they'd probably deem it a nightmare start for them. Really, really, truly. Like, you're sitting 19th in the country when you were preseason ranked number 1 across the board. Like, they're nowhere near where they thought they'd be or where they wanted to be. There's so many intriguing storylines here, Harrison, because on both sides, it's like, is Texas A&M going to wake up? Are they going to come alive? Are they going to get back or get to the form we thought they'd be? Then you got Alabama over here, who's like, hey, guys, how about us? Justin LeBron might be the most exciting player in the conference right now, at least one of them in the entire country, right? You got a pitching staff that's been really, really good. We saw them in Jacksonville, what they did sweeping through that tournament, obviously. We talked about coming in the season, Harrison, one of those middle-of-the-pack teams. Alabama's got a chance to make a big-time statement this weekend if they can go into Bluebell, take this series. We talk about all the time, Harrison, win your series at home, don't get swept on the road. If you can go on the road into Bluebell and beat the team that was consensus number 1 in the preseason, my goodness, what a statement for Rob Vaughn's club that will be. So feels like kind of now or never for the Aggies. It feels like, I'll tell you this, Harrison, A&M, it seems like, I think, has all the pressure in this one. Bama, they're kind of playing with some house money, and I know a lot of people are going to be picking them, but house money from the standpoint, like, nobody expected us to go in here and win this series. Man, we take 2 out of 3. It'll be a loud weekend for the Crimson Tide. But this one is truly fascinating from the standpoint of, like, I think anything could happen this weekend in College Station.
100% agree, Chris. I think this was one of the most toss-up series for me for this weekend of SEC play, just because of how talented Texas A&M is, but they're not playing like it. And just the struggles they've had, the inconsistencies we've seen on everything but the starting pitching staff of, headlined by Ryan Prager, who's proven to be one of the top 5 pitchers in the country. I'll say that right now, and top 5 in the SEC for sure. And how hot Alabama is and just deep their lineup is. I'm more concerned about Alabama on the pitching side, especially the starting rotation. I think Texas A&M has a far superior starting rotation than Alabama, but it's going to be, can they silence this lethal offense led by Justin LeBron, who you and I both believe and have him in our Golden Spikes conversation going into SEC play. And I mean, like I said, really a toss up. I mean, you look at the stats and it feels like it's such a heavy Alabama favorite statistically with non-conference season stats so far. I mean, look at WRC plus for Alabama, 2nd in the country, 142nd for Texas A&M. Unbelievable. But then you look at the pitching staff and it's the other way around. A&M has all the edges, all the advantages. And it's just such a toss-up series. Does this kind of A&M club flip the script? Hey, locker room, new season. This starts today. What happened in non-conference play is gone. We can't do anything about it. It's behind us. Take care of what's important now. Win. That was their acronym last year. I think they're going to ride with it again a little bit. I think they have to. What's important now, and it's setting the tone for SEC play, and that Texas A&M is a top team in the country. And, defend the home territory. You got to defend Bluebell Park, and it's going to be an unbelievable series to watch. And like I said, I think it's a coin flip, but to give you my pick, I picked Alabama. I just think you got to ride. I ride the hot hand right now, and what I know has been more consistent playing at a high level. And I think the offense has been more consistent for Alabama, just headlined by Justin LeBron and just how important he is in all facets of the game. And, you're going on the road. It's a tough series, but I mean, I just think they squeak out an extra hit or something, but would not surprise me one bit in the slightest if A&M just comes out and wins the series. Wouldn't at all.
Yeah, Bama going into Bluebell and taking 2 out of 3, winning this series would be, again, it would be a loud statement to the rest of the conference. Because I think, Harrison, like right now, we're still kind of looking at Bama with some reservations. Like, okay, like they've really crushed non-conference, but let's see you do it in conference play, right? If they go into Bluebell, take the series, even with A&M struggles, I'll be like, man, I mean, this is and we obviously know what Bama's got next week. They got Tennessee coming into Tuscaloosa. But I mean, it will be a statement of epic proportions to the point where, like, man, this team should be taken seriously. It's like they can finish in the top 5 in the conference. Like, there's no question. They're that caliber. If you can go in there and beat an A&M team that's as talented as they are. Yeah, to your point, I think even though they're on the road, I think Bama at this point feels like the safer pick, which is exactly why I'm going to go Texas A&M. I just – dude, this team's got to wake up at some point. Like,
yeah, that's fair. I wouldn't surprise me either way. This was probably the closest series of the SEC slate.
Yeah, I refuse to believe this team is just going to lay over and die and just this is what they're going to be. This is going to be a 35-win team that struggles to go 500 in conference play, and it's just this is their fate. They're doomed. They're destined for mediocrity. I just refuse. I mean, dude, listen, a guy like Jace Lavalette, brother, you got to step up and be that guy this weekend. Your boy Gavin is out, obviously, for the season. He's not the only one, but like, hey, buddy, now's your time to shine.
I think he switch this weekend. Yeah, it might not be the first half of game 1 or game 1, but I think he does.
Yeah,
he's so talented he can.
To your point, the starting rotation I'm not worried about. I think A&M's as good as anybody in the country starting rotation. The bullpen concerns me. The bullpen worries me. They have struggled in the bullpen all throughout non-conference play. That's something that I could see, if Bama's to win the series, Harrison, maybe the bullpen costs A&M a game.
Maybe they take the games 2 and game 3.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's the difference. You know what I mean? Like lack of pitching depth and guys they trust in the pen's the difference. But A&M at home, I got to ride with the Aggies right now. I just and I won't be surprised, right? Again, it's we're going to find out one way or the other who's who. That's the point of conference play. But, man, I think A&M's going to finally wake up. I think A&M's going to look more like that team we thought they were going to be. I mean, if there's anything that can galvanize a group, it's adversity and a ranked team coming into your house for a 3-game set, conference play getting going. Maybe like you mentioned, Harrison, they really do look at it as like, all right, what's happened has happened. We're 9-6. Who cares? New season starts today. Hey, Michael Early, first SEC weekend. That's a big storyline here. Like, hey, it's been non-conference play. So, like, all those decisions and those small things, there's going to be a greater microscope on all of that. So, yeah. Michael Early, your real test is beginning now, right?
And I think both teams have been tested, Chris. I really do. I think Bama in a different way than Texas A&M. But you look at it like the pitching strength that A&M has, they're almost a whole ERA point better. They're 8th in the country versus Alabama's 33rd. The bats have kind of carried more of the load than the pitching staff depth-wise on the mound. But you got to set a tone somehow. This is the weekend to do it. Fresh season, fresh slate for everyone in that A&M locker room. Whatever it takes.
Harrison, if you're A&M, don't let Justin LeBron beat you. Like, pick on somebody else.
Yeah.
Pick on somebody else because the dude.
And I think a lot of them are going to be focused on it in the locker room. I haven't talked to any of them yet, but it's going to be, what's important now. And it's like this at bat, this out, this inning, but play for each other. Picking each other up and doing that. It's just the little things, the energy in the dugout, like we've seen sparks of and flashes of, and just I think it's a flip of the switch this weekend, and it's going to be a nail biter of a series, and I'm excited to watch it.
Our guy Jake McKeever also going with the Alabama Crimson Tide, so I'm the lone one going with the Aggies. By the way,
And
guys,
he's much bigger. He's much bigger on A&M's pitching or Alabama's pitching staff than I am.
Mm-hmm. And just for note, guys, we're going to keep up with records, by the way. So I'm going to have some bragging rights if these first two, if I'm able to nail them and Harrison and Jake miss. Let's go to Oxford, Mississippi. Harrison, another big one. 13th ranked Ole Miss hosting the 3rd ranked Arkansas Razorbacks. And you talk about a huge opportunity for the Rebels. This is a team we've seen in person a few times this season. It's going to be beer showers. I haven't looked at the weather. Hopefully it's really, really nice. The beers are going to be flowing. Beer showers are going to be happening. Hopefully, Harrison, there's no social media story to distract from what's really happening on the diamond, obviously. But, yeah, a lot of fun storylines in this one, man. What version of Gabe Gackle do we get, right? He's been kind of up and down over his last few starts. Obviously got touched up against Charlotte. Wasn't great last weekend, but he settled down, settled in, gave them a quality start at least. The Arkansas Bats are always something to follow. Kuhio Aloy trying to stay hot. Brent Iredale's been really, really good for them lately as well. And when it comes down to Ole Miss, Harrison, again, this is another team like in Alabama where it's like, we even had lower expectations, I think, for them in the preseason. They've obviously climbed up the rankings. They're a top 15 team. Buddy, the opportunity to make a statement is here. It's going to be an electric weekend at Swayze. Your thoughts on this series this weekend?
Yeah, I think it's going to be electric. I think that it's going to be another really competitive series. This is 3 straight series we talked about for conference play that are all going to be insanely competitive.
Ranked, all 3 of them.
All ranked on rank. And I think it's more so just them being ranked on rank. It's just the talent and on both sides of the ball, on the hitting and on the pitching side, and just kind of what we've seen so far in the season. And then you look at, the talent I think Arkansas has on the mound. I mean, Gabe Gaekle, Zach Root. I mean, Gage Wood. You have
they're going to pitch. You know
Will McIntyre. You got all Ben Bite. I mean, you got all these dudes. I mean, Landon Beetleshees. I mean, just talented guys, and I think it's gonna be super fun to watch them go against a really talented Ole Miss team that's really been a dark horse in the SEC. Chris, they've really jumped the rankings and just been quietly taking care of business. They've challenged themselves in non-conference play, and you have young guys like Mason and who's the other guy in the bullpen? I'm trying to draw a blank on the freshmen that are just really kind of come on and taken important roles in this team so far this season. I mean, you got Mason Morris, and who is it? Walker Hooks. That's the name of him for Walker Hooks. How impressive I've been with him this season, and just the longevity that they've given you, and just the dominance on the mound it feels like they've given you. But then you have Judd Udermark, who's been unbelievable out of the gates, and you have freshmen around them as well in the leadoff spot up and down the lineup for Ole Miss. That's really talented, stepped up in these roles, and been able to fulfill them in a competitive non-conference slate so far. So to see that, it's going to be really fun to watch. Another extremely close series. I just think with this one, why I said Alabama, Texas A&M is, the hardest series for me to pick is because of the inconsistencies we've seen from A&M with how talented they are and the struggles they've had. But we know, I think, more of a census of what these two teams are in Arkansas and Ole Miss. And it's going to be so much fun to watch. I think the pitching is going to be a pitching duel. You got Gabe Gaekle and Hunter Elliott on Friday. And then you got Zach Root and Riley Maddox on a Saturday. I mean, Sunday it's gonna be all hands on deck. Obviously, I haven't seen anything announced about starting rotations for Sunday, but it's gonna be best on best that's available on Sunday, and so probably some lower scoring games in Swayze. I honestly think so, just with the elite arms we're gonna see, even as talented as the Bats have been for Arkansas, something we're not used to seeing, Chris. I mean, the Aloy brothers have been off the charts. I mean, Kuhui Aloy's been number 1 on the charts in the SEC and in the country. In batting average, batting over 500. I don't care if it's non-conference or not. And they've challenged themselves. I mean, you're playing quality opponents.
Played in that tournament in Arlington. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you play some mid-majors as well at home and whatnot. But like we said last year, if Arkansas bats anywhere in the middle of the pack, the SEC, they would have been in Omaha last year. They batted second to last in batting average ahead of only Missouri. Right? So it's going to be really cool to see who steps up in these clutch opportunities. Batting wise, once we get to the bullpen arms and what bullpen arms are able to shut things down, shut lineups down, shut innings down with guys and runners on scoring position. So I'm excited to see that, Chris. And so, I mean, with that, it's tough picking against Swayze, but I got the Arkansas Razorbacks on the road, headlined by the pitching staff, Chris. I think the link that the starters go with bounce back game from Gabe Gakel in the start. Hunter Elliott probably I think he'll have a bounce back game as well. He struggled in his last outing after being one of, if not the best pitchers in the country in SEC up until last week. I think pitchers duel. I just think a little bit more length out of Arkansas starters saves your bullpen, and just nail biter takes the series Sunday in a rubber match.
Yeah, I trust the pitching of Arkansas more as well, Harrison, to your point. I am going with the Razorbacks. This pick scares the hell out of me. And the fact that our guy Jake McKeever, he also goes Arkansas. So we got clean sweep picking the Razorbacks. The fact we're all on Arkansas terrifies me.
The Rebels have clip-off material now.
This is the weekend. This is the series, I think. If any of these is going to be like, man, that series was just drunk. Well, maybe because we got beer showers. It would be this one. Like I could see this just being a wacky weekend, couple walk-offs, some just stuff we haven't, you don't typically see. I absolutely could see that upset. But to your point, Harrison, I just got to go with the knowns right now. I trust Arkansas a little bit more. I'm really intrigued to see if they can continue to stay hot swinging the bats. That's what terrifies you about Arkansas. I'm like, are they going to go ice cold in conference play?
And that's what we're talking about. Now we understand why we're both worried.
Yeah.
That's our concern.
They have that capability of doing so. So it's going to be this is going to be any other weekend, Harrison. This might be the series of the weekend, but when you have a stacked schedule as we have on conference opening weekend, this is the third one we talk about. So anyways, Ole Miss, Arkansas going to be electric. You're picking the Hogs. I'm picking the Hogs. Jake picking the Hogs. We're all going Hogs. Woo pig. Let's go to the dude, Harrison. Mississippi State hosting the 11th ranked Texas Longhorns. Welcome to the SEC Hook'em. You get to go to Starkville, Mississippi, and deal with one of the craziest crowds in the country and one of the best venues, dare I say, the best venue in all of college baseball. This is how life in the SEC, Harrison, begins for Texas. Obviously, I look specifically at Texas's pitching staff. Cannot wait to watch a guy. Again, we've debated a lot about where does he rank amongst the best aces in the SEC. Jared Spencer will once again get the baseball. We know about their lineup 1 through 9. They were as tough as any in the conference. Big opportunity for Mississippi State. I feel like the hype on State has really cooled off since earlier this season, Harrison. They obviously go to that tournament in Houston, lose 2 out of 3. They've fallen out of the top 25. A lot of folks feel like they should be a top 25 team. They're going to have a rowdy bunch behind them. And again, we've already dropped our predictions graphic. We got a lot of State fans giving us grief in the mentions. And again, we'll get into the picks in just a second. But Pico Khan going on Friday. Can't wait to see him. What do you get out of Hunter Hines this weekend? Going to be really interesting. Harrison, I'm excited for this one. I mean, listen, there's a lot of cool places to start life in the SEC. This is about as cool as it gets. If you're a Texas fan going on the road, my goodness, soak it up, enjoy. You've actually been there, Harrison. I haven't. Eat up all the food they give you because it's all going to be great.
Hang out in the outfield.
Don't ask questions. Yeah, go to the outfield. Don't ask questions. Eat the food. Enjoy.
Make friends, and they will feed you well.
Yeah, get set for a great weekend of SEC baseball.
And honestly, walk around the ballpark, experience it. It's one of the coolest, if not, I think it's the number 1 ballpark in the SEC. Sorry, Razorback fans. I haven't been yet, but I mean, still, I've been to over half of them, and I think it's the coolest and nicest ballpark in the SEC. And just the environment's unbelievable. Number 1 fan experience, I think, in the SEC, I can attest to, at least so far. Hoping to hit the rest of them this season. But it's going to be hostile. They're going to welcome them, but they're going to give them hell all 3 games. Mm-hmm. And I think in a respectful way, but like still, they're going to make it tough to, they make it a loud environment. It's going to be so much fun. Once the night comes in, it's going to be just super cool vibe and experience. I think Texas fans will appreciate it, but they'll appreciate it more if they come out with a series win. And you're facing, like you said, I think a kind of cooled off Mississippi State team. I think that I don't want to say slept on, but I think it's more of the focus on Texas and the SEC. Texas now ahead of Texas A&M, their rival in the rankings before even conference play. I mean, we talked about it. Would you believe preseason if you said to me, if March, first week of March, Texas A&M is the best team in the state, I would not have believed you.
Texas, you mean, but yes.
Yes, if Texas was the best team in the state, I would not have believed you, right? But I think Mississippi State's a really talented team. I think they just, if they struggled, they slipped up a little bit here and there. But I do think, you look at the stats and like the sabermetric stats, the advanced analytical stats of it, they're very highly ranked. amongst several, key stats that I think are going to correlate throughout the season. Like our guys at 6'4 Analytics do an unbelievable job at it. I mean, top 10 teams in D1 for isolated power. Mississippi State's 9. Texas ain't even in there. I mean, the rotation I think is deeper and better at Texas. And the bullpen, they've got some really good dudes, but it's about guys stepping up to the bullpen and guys more so than Dylan Volantis, whether they use him, Friday or Saturday, or they save him for a Sunday. They're probably going to have a doubleheader. I wouldn't be surprised with the weather they're going to have in Texas, Chris.
Yeah, sounds like they're talking about a doubleheader there in Seattle. So.
And how that kind of correlates to the strategy behind who pitches when. Max Weiner always does an unbelievable job at that and managing that load. And you have guys like Max Grubbs who can go and goes multiple innings in the stopper that he is. You got Ruger Rejoas and you got Anthony Duplantier the second, I believe, and just guys like that who can step up in situations. That's gonna be the biggest key for Texas, and doing so on the road in a hostile environment like this against a team like Mississippi State, who's top 10 in isolated power in the country. And I think doesn't have a lot of attention on them in the SEC with how top heavy it is and just the focus on Texas joining the SEC this season. I mean, weighted runs created plus, Chris, Mississippi State 160. And we talk about how talented this Texas roster is. They're 135 in WRC plus. Weighted runs created plus. That's one of the biggest analytic metrics I look at for teams offensively. And I mean, it goes to show it's going to be a tight series. The pitching staff, I definitely think, has an edge up and down for Texas, but it's about guys stepping up to the bullpen. And I think Texas does that and sets a statement in a rubber match on Sunday and give me the Longhorns to set a precedent in the SEC that they're here to play and not only play, but win.
Another pick, Harrison, that terrifies the hell out of me. Ace Reese, a guy I'm really excited to watch play this week. And I think one of the more underrated, exciting players in this conference, the transfer, I believe, from Houston that is starring for State. We got a comment here that, to his point, Hunter Hines has not been like the leader offensively for them. So if he steps up and gets going, all of a sudden they become really dangerous. I'm going with the Longhorns as well, Harrison. And again, it terrifies the hell out of me because here's the thing. Going on the road in this conference and taking 2 out of 3, do not underestimate how tough that is. Like, again, the dude's going to be rocking. I mean, this is as difficult.
And I hate picking teams on the road in the SEC, Chris. I really do.
Sometimes you got to do it.
But you go with, especially weekend series number 1 in the SEC, you go with what you know, playing at the highest level most consistently.
Yeah, exactly. So to your point, I'm going to take the Texas Longhorns. I love the lineup. I love what they've done in the pitching staff. Like you mentioned, the arm farm, Max Weiner has been, he's just done his thing. It just, dude, whatever pitching staff he touches, it just seems like he gets the best out of them. And so I guess we shouldn't really be all
30 for a reason.
Yeah, we shouldn't be all that surprised. Longhorns are rolling. They're red hot. They've won, I think, 15 in a row. They're off to their best start since 2005. I think they'll keep momentum. I do think State gets a game, obviously. I don't think it's a sweep, but I do think Texas will take 2 or 3. Our guy, Jake McKeever, as well, is taking the Longhorns. So all 3 of us taking Texas, which, again, scares the hell out of me.
Yep.
I will not be surprised.
Mississippi State at all. Super talented, like I said. I think there'll be a rubber match on Sunday for the series. And, I think it comes down to just a clutch hit or two. I know I say that for a lot of teams often, but I really do. And it tends to do so more often than not. And like you said, Texas off to their best start since 2005 when they won their last national championship. I think they were 52-11.
Mm-hmm. Watch out for the freshman this weekend, Adrian Rodriguez.
A-Rod is a stud, can mash. And,
if your name's A-Rod, you better be able to mash.
Yeah, if you have to be a hitter first off, let alone mash. Like you said, I think we're excited to see who for Mississippi State, like maybe it's a Hunter Hines or someone else steps up in clutch spots consistently throughout the weekend. So we'll see. And, things will kind of reveal themselves in the SEC, let alone, I think, statements made in week 1.
Yeah, going to be a big one. Again, Texas beginning life in the conference. Let's go to the Plains, Harrison. 25th ranked Auburn Tigers are hosting the 16th ranked Vanderbilt Commodores. Once again, ranked on ranked series here. Kind of a series flying under the radar a little bit. Offensively, Harrison, which of these 2 offenses has more punches? I will tell you this. Huge opportunity for Auburn because, again, they're still just flying super under the radar. Even after going into that tournament in Arlington, they rolled through that one. I believe they beat Oregon State in that because, they had an undefeated weekend. They took
Oregon State still top 10.
Right, exactly. So, a huge win there. I think a team we're not talking about as much. It's interesting. They're not getting quite as much love as like an Alabama has, or it has been getting. They've had their struggles, obviously, in some weekend spots. But, again, Auburn's been really impressive. A Butch Thompson coach club. They're going to be ready to go. And then Vanderbilt, Corbs and the boys. They're going to pitch. J.D. Thompson going to get the baseball on Friday, I'd assume. R.J. Austin, I think, is obviously going to be an X factor for them weekend after weekend. Harrison, your thoughts on this series on the Plains, Auburn or Vanderbilt? Which way you going here?
Chris, I think this is going to be an interesting series for a different regard. It's just middle of the pack, who wants to establish themselves at the higher end of that. With two talented teams, and Vanderbilt's been hitting a lot better than, the struggles that they've had in past seasons and questions and concerns we had coming in. R.J. Austin leading that charge full-fledged and just, carrying it on his back. But then you have Brody Johnston, freshman, who's, playing every bit of a part in the conversation for SEC Freshman of the Year. Then you have guys on the mound like J.D. Thompson and the stuff he has. Ethan McElvin struggled on the mound. Shorter starts, putting more pressure on the bullpen on a Saturday, if they kind of keep him in that role or whatnot. But then, that leverages the bullpen more on Sunday, depending on how the start goes. I don't know who's starting Sunday, if it's TBD or not. But Auburn has an opportunity, like you said, being slept on, but climbing up in the rankings and, being up at the top of that middle tier of the SEC, and they have the talent to do so. Samuel Dutton's shoved. He's been a very, very effective and huge piece of this Auburn success so far this season. And they're going to get a big start out of him for sure. And you're going to need some length. And, the Cade Fisher struggles and concerns I've had this whole season. But the offense is going to have to pick it up, and the bullpen's going to have to not let what happened against Old Dominion happen. That just cannot happen in the SEC, or you will lose series consistently, right? And so that's, obviously a concern to watch. Something to keep an eye out and watch out for. But I just think the bats of Auburn have been more consistently led by Cooper McMurray. I mean, I think headlines undoubtedly the Auburn Tigers offense. And then you have Ike Irish, who is really heating up now. I mean, Charlotte started out the gate, but really heating up, and you have guys around him that, are stepping up. You have 3 role play freshmen that are in, not even role play, in starting roles that, are playing very well. And so I think that with that being said, I take Auburn in this series. I don't think Auburn sweeps. I don't think they get swept. I think it's a 2 or 3. I don't ever pick a sweep in the SEC really, unless it's just so unbelievably unbalanced. I've done it once and it came back to bite me. So I won't be doing that again, but I'm glad to be picking a home team in this one. So looking forward to that, and not picking a road SEC team, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what the crowds are like. You mentioned obviously picking.
And I've been to Plainsman Park's a great crowd. It's a great.
And now they've upgraded. Facility. They got the seats on top of the green, their version of the green monster.
I'm looking
out there
forward to going back this season and experiencing that.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Auburn as well. At home, I think the energy will be high. Again, like you mentioned, they had obviously the blown game. Bullpen gives up 9 runs. Don't see that happening again. Lesson learned. That's why you want to learn those lessons in the non-conference. Yeah, I trust Auburn swinging the bats more than Vanderbilt still.
I trust the long ball of Auburn too.
Yeah, I haven't, like, Vandy had a fine non-conference slate. I didn't see anything that really changes much of my opinion on them. As long as
I'm a little higher on the offense though than I was coming to season.
Yeah, I think as long as you're not letting R.J. Austin just go off on you all weekend, you should be able to navigate the Vandy offense.
Like you said with Alabama, about containing Justin LeBron, not letting him beat you. Don't let R.J. Austin beat you, because he's going to get on and be on third base after either single double or a stolen base or a pass ball.
Yeah, he'll turn a walk into a double real quick. I'm going to go with the Auburn Tigers as well, though, Harrison. Like I said, you mentioned McMurray, Ike Irish. I think some big swings of the bat from them. I think they'll take 2 or 3. Our guy, Jake McKeever, he's going with the Vanderbilt Commodores. So one of our first disagreements in a few picks there. Jake going with the Doors, Harrison and I going with War Eagle. Harrison, let's go to Athens, Georgia, a team that we've talked about a lot over the last few weeks. The 4th-ranked, whether you agree or disagree, the 4th-ranked Georgia Bulldogs taking on the Kentucky Bobcats. By the way,
not in my rankings, they aren't.
We don't hate Georgia. We've been getting a lot of you guys hate Georgia. We don't hate Georgia. We just think they're overrated. But they host the Kentucky Wildcats this weekend, Harrison, at Foley Field on that brand new turf field there. First SEC weekend on that turf for Wes Johnson and the boys. Obviously, the big storyline for Georgia is the starting pitching. I mean, what are we going to get from the starting pitching in conference play? And I think from the Kentucky side, Harrison, I just think for better or for worse, Nick Mingione's club, it's another year where they just fly under the radar, man. I mean, Kentucky, when you think of Kentucky, like it's basketball season right now in Lexington. Let's call it what it is. You don't think baseball first when you think of the Cats. And last year was a nice story. You go to Omaha, but they lost so much. And I mean, there were no expectations for them coming in. Harrison, which way you going here? And again, your thoughts on this series, because it's wildly intriguing because Kentucky came out of nowhere last year too. So, if Georgia messes around, they just might find out this weekend.
If Georgia gets in a hole again for one, let alone 2 games, they might lose the series, Chris. And it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. Honestly, it wouldn't, but I am picking Georgia. Georgia fans, listen up. I am picking Georgia to win the series. I think they're going to have to deal with Nick McKay, who is a top 10 pitcher in the SEC that no one knows about outside of Lexington, Kentucky. Nick McKay, statistically a top 10 pitcher in the SEC, especially according to our guys at 6'4 Analytics. I mean,
they've got a freshman in their lineup. They're touting is like they think he's the best freshman in the conference, or should be in the conversation.
I think he's in the conversation for freshman of the year for sure in the SEC. But it's going to be if Georgia doesn't get in a big hole, 1 let alone 2 games. If they get in a big hole against Nick McKay, I don't think they're coming back to win the game unless he just struggles and they blow up the bullpen in the 8th and 9th. But Georgia, I think, tightens up a little bit more pitching wise. The bullpen still going to carry the load pitching wise. Hopefully they don't use it all on Friday and Saturday, and it being Sunday, just all hands on deck or whatnot. But I am picking the Dogs. I think just the offense swings a lot better, more consistently, and throughout the lineup up and down. But I don't think they sweep at all. I really don't. Like I said, I don't think any SEC team sweeps this weekend. Sorry to, blow that news up, but I just don't. I think that the SEC is so talented, but I don't know. I mean, I think it's a tough series. I do think that Georgia pulls out a win in 2 of the 3 games at least, Chris.
Yeah, Harrison, it's funny, for as much people think that we're a hater of Georgia or what have you. I mean, I think Georgia wins the series also. It's just, again, listen, there's a difference between
I still think Georgia's overrated. They should not be top 4.
Yeah, at 4 though. They're not 24 and we're saying they're overrated. They're ranked 4th. I mean, if you can't be a top 5 team and I just have no clue about your starting rotation, I'm sorry, you're not a top 5 team at that point.
And
that
being said, JT Quinn, who has starting experience in the SEC. He's coming back from injury and his issues, but he only goes 1 inning. I know his pitch cap and whatnot, but just you can't have anyone else as much talent as they brought in, Chris, this season. And the guys that Wes Johnson's been recruiting now for two seasons at least, right? That they don't have sound, consistent starters in non-conference. That scares the crap out of me.
Yeah, as it should. I think, again, to your point, as long as the starting pitching is just not horrific this weekend, they're going to outslug Kentucky. Like that, That lineup is one of the best in the country.
Tennessee just plays, or not Tennessee, excuse me. Kentucky just plays clean defense and clean, sound baseball.
You know what you're going to get from a Nick.
Yeah, and that's what they did against Tennessee last year. That's where I was going with that. And it was just a tough series. That's why Kentucky was so good last year. They, kept themselves in the game all the time from playing sound defense. Small ball kind of, just base hit, get them over, get them in, stealing bags, doing the little things, right? And that's why Kentucky is just, I think, their style of play and Nick Mingione's, style of play and pedigree as a coach.
Yeah. Colton Smith, Leighton Finley, it's time to step up.
Leighton Finley needs to have a big start, I think, for himself, but also for Georgia fans and to kind of get rolling the SEC play because it's not going to get any easier.
Yeah, it's time to step up, boys. Time to bring the heat. I am going Dogs as well, though, Harrison. Again, I think to your point, probably 2 out of 3. I think they could sweep. I think they could, but Georgia wins the series. Our guy Jake McKeever, number 1 Georgia hater out there for all you wondering.
Yeah,
he's going with Kentucky.
So blow up his mentions, not mine.
Jake going. I like it though. Bold pick. I mean, listen.
I respect the non-clean sweep.
Kentucky, they came out of nowhere last year too. Maybe it's the same song and dance. Who knows? Harrison, I thought it was a very bold take you just made that no SEC team is going to sweep because we're going to go to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where the number 1 ranked LSU Tigers host Missouri. Harrison, there's pressure to sweep for LSU.
Can I change my pick? Can I change?
We haven't locked in a pick yet. It's fine.
So my statement.
Again, what's so fascinating here, we don't need to spend a ton of time on this one because Mizzou stinks. They've just been bad. They've been bad all year. There isn't a whole lot to talk about when you talk about Mizzou. It is what it is. This series is all about LSU. You're at home, and it's kind of funny. You're excited for conference play, but then you're like, oh, we play Mizzou. Like we're still fired up and everything, but it's not quite the same, right? But it's interesting because like it's almost like there's a pressure to win all 3 games because it's like you can tell yourself, Harrison, that like, hey, as long as you win 2 out of 3, like that's a great weekend in conference. But I think every team that loses a game to Mizzou is really going to be kicking themselves. And I'm not trying to, kick Mizzou while they're down, but it's just
you're going to kick Florida while they're down too last year?
No, it's just the reality. Dude, this is Missouri. This is not Florida last year.
What happened last year to Florida last year?
I understand, but this is Missouri. That is not the same thing. So
you're
I guess
this Missouri team's better or worse than last year's Missouri team?
This team might be the worst team in the history of SEC baseball.
Didn't they? No, we looked it up. There's actually been way worse teams, I think.
Oh, we don't know yet. They might go 1-29 in conference play. I don't know.
We'll circle back to that one. But I mean, we talk about how Florida was going to go into Columbia, Missouri, and sweep, and they got swept. And then they ended up in Omaha.
Sure, anything can happen. But I mean, you have a losing weekend in the Andre Dawson Classic. You split against Binghamton. I mean, there's nothing we've seen to this point that tells us Mizzou should go into the box and have any success. So, I mean, listen, if LSU manages to only win 2 or 3, you're not going to say, oh, my God, like, blow it up. LSU's no good. But there's a pressure.
Say they're overrated, though.
There's a pressure to sweep. There's no doubt a pressure to take all 3 games. LSU's the superior team. They're better. I mean, obviously what Bear Jones is doing, he's seeing a beach ball. Derek Curiel, one of the best freshmen in the country. They're obviously continuing to evolve that
Josh
DH
Pearson playing third base now.
Yeah, playing third base with Josh Pearson. Michael Breswell getting beat out there. I mean, we know about Monster Milam, what he does. I mean, the list just goes on and on. I mean, obviously what Danny Dickinson is doing. Earring stock is through the roof right now in Baton Rouge. Oh, and by the way, a guy we haven't talked about enough. What is it? Cade Anderson on Friday. One of the best aces in the SEC, Anthony Ianson. It's funny. I was about to say he's going to look to bounce back from his start last week. A little bit early struggle, but he had 15 strikeouts in that start. So
he had Chase Schwartzman on Sunday. He struggled on Sunday a little bit, but
he has.
I think really talented staff.
Simply put, Harrison, LSU, give me the Tigers. They're going to sweep. I just
give me the Tigers too, Chris. I'm not going to say sweep. I'm not guaranteeing any sweeps anymore. Anything can happen. And Chris, I will remind you,
I will be stunned if Mizzou wins a game. Stunned.
All right. Well, Omaha won a game against LSU in the box, and they were very neck and neck in game 1.
I mean, it is baseball, and anything can happen. I'm just saying. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to be stunned if Mizzou wins a game.
Really? What about? I mean, we talked about Nichols last year beating LSU.
We'll see.
We've seen. You want to talk about Florida's midweek struggles? I mean, just things like that have happened. But I'm not going to guarantee any sweeps in the SEC this year. I'll stick to that statement. It wouldn't surprise me if LSU sweeps at all, but it would.
This weekend's going to give us a good indication. Like, does Mizzou have any life at all?
Yeah, I guess. But I mean, Chris, if LSU doesn't sweep and Tennessee wins the series, they have to put Tennessee at number 1. Have to. There is no excuse.
See, that's the pressure. That's the pressure to sweep.
There is no excuse. There is zero excuse for D1 baseball or anyone else to put LSU at number 1 again if they don't sweep and Tennessee beats Florida 2 out of 3, if not sweep.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
I mean, I already have Tennessee number 1, LSU number 2, respectively.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
But
so we're both going LSU, obviously.
We're all 3 going LSU.
Jake McKeever, of course, is going LSU. Should be a fun weekend at the box. Again, pressure to sweep. I think I talked to LSU folks here, so they're like, they feel that. They're like, damn, we better sweep. That fan base will blow a gasket if they lose one of those games. Blow a gasket.
Either you or I are going to be talking about it all week with other shows. So
right, wrong, or indifferent, they will blow a gasket. It will be.
But I do expect all 3 starters to just double-digit punch-outs.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Bear Jones might hit double-digit home runs against Missouri. He won't really.
He might hit a backside knuckle duster over right field.
A knuckle duster. I like that. I'm gonna take that. That's nice. I like that. Final SEC weekend, Harrison. Let's go to Columbia, South Carolina. The Gamecocks hosting the 12th ranked Oklahoma Sooners. Again, we keep having the debate about best aces in the SEC. Well, Kyson Witherspoon's going to take the mound again. Been ranked number 1 by some. He's going to have an opportunity to show off yet again. Harrison, can South Carolina find any offense? I'm also really intrigued. Again, we haven't seen, I haven't looked lately what the starting rotation for South Carolina is going to be. Matthew Becker pitching in the midweek. Was that just like a bullpen maybe? Or
there's no shot he starts on Friday.
But to pitch on Wednesday. Yeah, maybe they're
I
sliding.
have done it before on Tuesday and pitched on a Thursday.
I would imagine they're sliding SECU back in that Friday spot.
Yeah, SECU's got to be Friday.
Yeah, here we go. Here we go. So we've got the starting rotation for South Carolina. Friday, Brandon Stone, the kid who came in relief against Clemson. Saturday, Jake McCoy. Sunday, Dylan Eskew. So Becker not even in the rotation.
Yeah, he'll probably come out of the bullpen for a long start, though.
Yeah.
You said Brandon Stone. Interesting.
Yeah, I think he's a freshman, too.
I mean,
either that or he's a transfer.
So with Kyson Witherspoon.
Yeah, good luck. Harrison, I'll kick it to you, though. Again, Oklahoma have been one of the, I say surprises. I think just to the level they've played at, being 12th right now, they've surprised that. We thought they were going to be pretty good, but your thoughts? This is life in the SEC beginning for the Sooners as well. They've got to go on the road to what has been a hostile environment in years past. I don't know what you're really going to get from Founders Park this weekend. I think that fan base is pretty, unfortunately, dejected after getting swept by Clemson. Thoughts? Could we see an upset here, or are you rolling with OU?
I definitely think we could see an upset, Chris. I really do. I think South Carolina's not getting enough credit for the middle tier, kind of bottom middle tier of the SEC that they are. I think Chris, we talked about it, the concerns we've had on both sides of the ball, but you and I talked about it against Clemson, what they showed us on the mound. I think across the board of the mound, honestly, as talented as Clemson is up and down the lineup, headlined by Cam Canarella, I think a preseason All-American, a Golden Spikes watch list, top of the watch list, right? And what they did on the mound was impressive. Dylan Eskew, Matthew Becker pitched well. The bullpen pitched well. I mean, there's a lot of guys for South Carolina that have pitched well. You got Jake McCoy, who pitched really well against Clemson, right? And I think they're going to impress and kind of shock some people on the mound, just containing Oklahoma's offense a little bit more than people think. I really do. I mean, analytics had this as a really close game, Chris, a really close series. It's actually surprising. I've seen some analytics that they have South Carolina favored 63% win percent for this series. But I just think the depth on the mound for Oklahoma is way too deep. I'm not even going to give them game 1, but there's no chance I see South Carolina beating Kyson Witherspoon in just the arsenal he has. He added a cutter, I believe, too. That is just playing extremely well. It looked really good against Sam Houston State. And then you got to go against Malachi, which I think they'll probably slide Malachi back into the Saturday role. I know they moved him to the Sunday role. He struggled last week, but I think maybe move back to the Saturday role. And I think you have talented guys around on the lineup enough to outswing South Carolina against the elite pitching staff that Skip Johnson's club feels like it continues to have with the Oklahoma Sooners. But I do think it's going to be a competitive series. I expect a rubber match, Chris, on Sunday. I really do, because I think South Carolina takes Saturday. I do, against the bullpen of Oklahoma. I mean, you look at offensive rankings, both of them are all right. Oklahoma has a little bit of an edge with the WRC plus of 82. South Carolina's an edge with a WRC plus of 82 for Oklahoma, 62 rank for South Carolina. So I think people are sleeping on South Carolina a little bit, but I do have Oklahoma winning the series, Chris.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Sooners as well, Harrison. I think that Oklahoma pitching staff is going to eat that South Carolina lineup alive, honestly. I don't, outside of Ethan Petrie, I don't see anything that really.
I think Nathan Hall has a good weekend.
Yeah, they just don't scare me outside of Petrie. And like you mentioned, like the arms for Oklahoma are really, really good. But I'm going to go Boomer Sooner as well. I could see some really low-scoring games. I mean, South Carolina's pitching has been the thing that's sort of carried them to this point. I mean, dude, they beat, I think it was Morehead State last week, and 1-0 in the Sunday game. So, like, they are really leaning on the pitching staff right now, and they've been really good. Now we got a new Friday guy, Brandon Stone. Again, bold play against Kyson Witherspoon, but
I mean, if you think about it, maybe they're just going for Saturday, Sunday.
Maybe they're pitching off. I mean, listen,
think about it. Maybe they're pitching off, and I hate that. I don't want to say that teams are doing that, but
Yeah, McCoy was really good against Clemson. I mean, Dylan SECU was really, really good against Clemson. So, but I'm going to go Oklahoma. I think 2 out of 3 to your point as well. I think the Gamecocks probably get one, but I think OU on the road. Our guy Jake McKeever also going with the Oklahoma Sooners.
I mean, and just like I think Oklahoma's lineups, we've talked about it, I think is deeper. I mean, and just there's more than than a one guy like Ethan Petrie that you have to face in Oklahoma's lineup, right? I mean, we've seen it this season, right? You have Kyle Branch, who I think is one of the most talented second basemen in the country. Jackson Willits, who struggled a little bit, but I think he maybe picks it up a little bit. Easton Carmichael's bagging right at 300 with an over 1,100 OPS. You got Sam Christensen. You got Jason Walk, who's batting over 350. I mean, a lot of talent up and down lineup. It's not just a one-man band. And with the pitching staff, I do think they take the series, Chris. I think Sunday might not be close, though.
Yeah, I could see that. Guys, that's going to do it for all of the preview, predictions, breakdown of the SEC weekend that is upcoming. Really quick, I want to give you guys this visual. We have posted this on social media, but boom, there you go. All of our picks. Again, this is on social media. Go comment on it. Go give us your thoughts, your predictions. Who do you think is going to take each of these series? And shout out to our guy, Eric Reese Creative, our graphics guy, making us look really, really cool all season long. This is an awesome graphic. We really appreciate Eric. Again, this is published on social media. If you're hearing the sound of my voice, again, it is our baseball series pick'em visual. And yes, we're going to be tracking these picks all season long. It's a competition between yours truly, Harrison, and Jake, who will have the best overall record.
Let us know in the comments who you think is going to win the pick'em series. Give us the order.
Who's the ball knower amongst the
who's the most ball knower of SECU? Yeah. Well, I want to know what people think. Pre-conference pick'em. Give us your preseason pre-conference pick'em rankings of ball knowers at SECU.
And also, Harrison, excited that pick'em is back, because obviously we didn't do this in non-conference just because of what non-conference play is. Now we've got the weekly pick'em. Really excited to drop that graphic on a weekly basis. And like I mentioned, you can check it out on social media. We will publish that every single week, every single Thursday. Harrison, before we get out of here, we are going to take a few questions, a few comments, but something really fun. Let's do a fun exercise. Top 3 questions we most want answered in SEC play. I will let you start.
Yeah, I think number 1, it's what A&M, what do we get from them? Is this a flip of the switch this season? Forget non-conference, new mindset going in, energy, everything, play for each other. What's important now, win. Jace Lavalette told me that from last year. I think that they do that, kind of lean on that this season until something else maybe forms, or they just keep riding with it. But what A&M do we get? Is this a flip of the switch for conference play going forward? And do they make a statement, or, do the woes continue? You want me to go through all 3?
Yeah, go all 3. Go ahead.
Number 2, Georgia Bulldogs. What do we get for the Georgia Bulldogs against SEC caliber pitching? The struggles that they've had, I think haven't been on the offensive side, obviously, because they just mashed the ball, everyone up and down the lineup. I mean, it's unbelievable to see how deep their lineup is on doubles and home runs. And it's really fun to watch if you like offense and if you're not pitching against them. But what do we get out of, Georgia's pitching staff facing an SEC lineup? I mean, I know it's Kentucky. It's not like you're facing Tennessee, Florida, Texas, LSU's lineup. But what do you like? This has been my question the past couple weeks, and why I think they are overrated. It's because they've struggled against, Columbia. They struggled against these other teams. They've struggled against, UNCW. They've been battling out of holes, and they've done it every single time. And props to them. Props to Georgia for battling out of holes every single time, except for their one loss to UNCW, just to say, for all the people that want to fact check me. They've done it all season long. Bullpen has been unbelievable. I think probably, top 2-3 bullpens in the SEC, let alone the country. Just the amount of workload they've had non-conference so far, I think maybe worries me a little bit, circle back moment for late May, but what that's going to be about not getting into holes and, figuring it out on the pitching staff side, starting pitching wise, and the confusion and kind of, I think people at Georgia are concerned about it too now. I mean, as much as they want to give me crap about it, I think they're starting to get concerned about it. You have guys coming back from pitch limits, from injuries. I get it. I think Colton Smith was a great starter last season in just what he's able to do. And I know he's not starting all the time, but I think maybe you put him back in a starting role, right? Number 3, I think it's the Iron Bowl head-to-head, not head-to-head on the field, but just kind of the season narrative back and forth with them. They're both 2 really talented teams that have climbed the rankings from kind of middle of the pack at SEC, more so Bama than Auburn. But, trying to identify themselves in the upper half, let alone upper third of the SEC. And Bama having a big opportunity to do that against what is now a differently more intriguing series against unanimous preseason number 1 in Texas A&M, and Auburn, hitting the ground running against a series that they can absolutely win, and I think should win, against Vanderbilt, and what that means for both teams going forward throughout the season. Because preseason, Chris, I talked about how similar I think these two teams are. We're going to find out real quick throughout SEC play, and I'm interested to see it, and just fans of the baseball in the state of Alabama going back and forth all season about it, because we know Auburn and Alabama hate each other, Chris, and they want each other to lose, and they want to beat each other every time they get to play. So I'm excited to see that for sure.
Yeah, all three valid, all three really solid questions here.
And I didn't want to go with any low-hanging fruit either. But
I think all three are really good questions. My three, number one, ours are both the same. Number one, again, Texas A&M. Just, are they going to get it rolling? Are they going to live up to, even remotely live up to that preseason hype, or they kind of just are what they are and they're going to struggle all year? And we overrated them for whatever reason. Again, Michael Early, huge conference slate upcoming for him. My second big question, just how good is Florida really? I think that's, we feel like they've been kind of flying under the radar. So much has been talked about Tennessee, LSU, rightfully so, but Florida's been kind of that team. It's like, I think we're not paying enough attention to them. I think they can be one of the best teams, top 5 team in the country. Obviously, they're ranked 7th right now. So huge opportunity out of the gate. Just what is Florida and how good is Florida and how good can they be? And then my third question, Harrison, really just who emerges from the middle of the pack, and kind of similar to what you talked about Auburn, Bama, because those are two I would consider in there. I put Oklahoma in that middle of the pack.
State in there.
Mississippi State in there. Ole Miss in there still at this point.
So your third one's basically half the SEC.
Yeah, essentially. How that, because I think when you break it down into tiers, I think that
it's the most fluid tier for sure.
Who emerges? Who kind of stands out? Or is it just a bunch of everybody's beating up on everybody, and you got a bunch of 16 and 14, 17 and 13 teams kind of hanging out right in the middle, which, we kind of think that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a game or two separating like 6 or 7 teams, it seems like. So it's going to be fun, man. I'm excited. We're finally here. We made it to conference play. Again, this is where truly the men separate themselves from the boys. We'll get into a few comments here. John Bro, great show. Bro with an EAUX. Shout out to the Bayou, man. Shout out to the Bayou. Tucker Brantley, would you consider Texas middle of the pack right now? I probably would until proven otherwise.
You would or would not?
I probably would consider them.
I've
got them like 6th. Yeah,
I think we both have them at 6.
Yeah.
Maybe one off.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that for sure.
I think that's fair. Let's see. Our guys over at Chinook, don't forget Golden Spikes Award presented by Chinook Seedery. We really appreciate those guys. Seeds I've been chewing on and will be chewing on all season.
I'll get a couple packs of new flavors in this weekend, Chris, for sure.
Yeah. Got to break in some new packs. David Speaks. Vols are the only unbeaten team. We should be number 1, y'all. Florida looked impressive against the Seminoles on the road. Can't wait for tomorrow. Yeah, it's going to be electric. Pure cinema.
Go look at my most recent tweet about why LSU's number 1 and why, the reasoning behind it. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Chinook, over under week 3 of conference play that the football helmet changes. It's like having up your Christmas tree.
Over. I love that comment, actually. Over.
Probably over. I would give it to you. Probably. I got to make that priority.
Play it against sports in a bottle of spray paint, Home Depot.
I know. I got to get on it.
You had the sticker already.
I keep saying it. I got to get on it. Jaron Green, does Arkansas have the best 2 through 5 hitters in the Alloy brothers, Iredale, and Logan Maxwell? That's a scary middle of the lineup with all the power.
No.
Not the best, but it's very good. It's better than Arkansas's had in quite a while. So
we'll see an SEC play, though.
Hey, David Speaks, Harrison off topic. Pitt series. Does Georgia Tech take 2 or 3 from the Panthers?
Georgia Tech takes 2 or 3, absolutely. And I will be on the call for Georgia Tech Pitt for doing color analyst Saturday for Saturday's game only, but tune into that. I'll be on ACC Network. I will be on the call for that. Working on trying to get some SEC games in there in the mix this season. We'll got that in the works. We'll see what kind of happens from that. But give me the Jackets 2 or 3 against a really good Pitt team. But I think Georgia Tech's a little underrated, in the ACC, just kind of overshadowed by the big dogs. But don't sleep on Georgia Tech.
Yeah, no, Georgia Tech, I think they take 2 or 3 as well from Pitt.
There we go.
Captain Crown, just found your podcast. Appreciate you tuning in, man. What's the background of you fellas? Glad to find college baseball talk. Yeah, we're just 2 dudes talking ball. No, Harrison played college baseball. I played college baseball. We started this last year, And we're glad you found us this year, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're live every single Monday, Thursday at noon Eastern for about an hour or so, hour plus, talking all things SEC baseball, midweek, weekends. You know the drill. So, yeah, appreciate you, man.
A little bit of ACC baseball, but passions in the SEC. Got an SEC degree. Both live in SEC country. I think me more so than you, but just trying to grow the game of college baseball, Captain.
Yeah. Sven says, it would not be a statement. The Aggies are not what everybody thought. Bama's the better team. They should sweep them. Bold take there. Should sweep them.
On the road, sweeping? You want to talk about a statement?
Yeah. David Speaks does make a good point. How are you this bad with Caden Sorrell and Jace Lavalette on your team? It reminds me of Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout on the Angels. That's a heck of a comparison.
That's a stretch.
Yeah, it's a heck of a comparison. But
Mike Trout's always hurt too, but
yeah. Yeah. No, listen, I think A&M's asking themselves the same question, to be fair. So we'll take a few more here. John says A&M's too talented to be down for long. They'll figure it out. Look at Florida last year. Horrible non-conference record, turned it around come tourney time. Cream ultimately rises to the top. He's got a good point. I mean, you can count him out all you want, but if it gets clicking, if and when, A&M will be one of the best teams in the country. So it's just with the talent they have, talent does shine at some point, you would think.
Should we throw up the one of Sven? UGA plays in a little league ballpark and brags about 2 home runs a game. I think Foley Field's not that big.
Where is that at?
It's about a bottom third. I don't have can't pull it up right
now. I will get there. I promise I'll highlight that one. Let's see. Our guy AYS Blake says Ike Irish is a dude. Indeed, he is. He also then asked, are y'all picking the sweep this weekend in Baton Rouge? Yours truly is, Blake. Yours truly is going with the sweep.
I'm not guaranteeing any sweeps in the SEC. Like, I'm not. Don't ban me from the Bayou. The LSU fans love them. They treat me and were very hospitable to me in Hoover last year. Hoping to do the same this year. Hoping to get in the Bayou, but don't want to be banned from the Bayou. That's for sure. I haven't been to the Bayou.
You don't want to be banned from the Bayou. No, you want to make sure when you go, they're giving you crawfish.
We're hoping to be there in a few weeks.
Yeah. Spence also, this is the comment. UGA plays in Little League Park and bragging about 2 homers a game. Maybe that's the combo we should be having instead of Lindsey Nelson. AYS quoting us, quote, we don't hate Georgia. We just think they're overrated. Hey, you could tweet that quote, do whatever you want. Frame that quote. Hey, whatever. Last one here. OU Revenge Tour. As a Sooner fan, can you guys tell me what I should be ready for when visiting the SEC ballparks? A lot of hospitality, a lot of energy, a lot of passion, a lot of great food, a lot of bourbon, and a really damn good time. That's what you should be
I'm going to give you 2 words and then a bonus. Hospitality and hostility, and then an unbelievable environment.
Yeah, I think that says it well. Harrison, one heck of a show, man. Our best yet, which I expected. Again, the best time of year is upon us. Conference play officially gets going. Guys, don't forget, tomorrow night, you're listening to us here on this Thursday. Tomorrow night, Friday Night Spikes will be back. Myself, Harrison, Jake, I think, is going to be at a series doing something. Who knows what he's doing? Might have a hot date that night. I have no idea. But Harrison and I will be on top of it. Friday Night Spikes again. It's going to be the most electric one yet. As we talk about break down the Friday night that was in the SEC, going to be a lot of fun. You can check that out. X, Facebook, YouTube. You know the drill. Everywhere you get us podcasts as well, we'll publish it immediately after. It is going to be an absolute blast hanging out with you guys, shooting the shit, taking your questions. That being said, Harrison, we'll go ahead and close it out. Last words, any last thoughts from you as we begin to enter conference weekend number 1?
The gauntlet of the SEC begins now, Chris. Begins now. The road to Omaha truly begins now as the road to Omaha runs through the SEC, and so does the national championship, Chris. And I'm so excited for it. I know we're stoked to finally talk about it. We get to pick them back. We get just the hostility, the hospitality, and the unbelievable experience at ballparks, the growth of college baseball, and that's headlined by the fans. We're just here to help facilitate it and help grow the game as we can. So without y'all, it ain't growing, and that's for sure. And we're just here to help do so, and happy to, be a part of it and help grow it as much as we can because we love it.
Yeah, just so excited, Harrison, that we've reached this time of year. Finally, I mentioned last week, no more games against Slapdick State on the weekends. We get the best conference in college baseball, everybody going to battle against each other. And while I'm not on the road this weekend, I'm actually really excited for that. I'm excited to sit down and just have all these games up. I'm going to have multiple screens going, have all the games. But I'm selfishly very, very excited for that. When I'm on the road, obviously do not get to do that. We stay so busy, locked in on one series. I'm selfishly really, really pumped to be at home and have all these different games up. So gonna have a lot of fun. The coverage content, guys, is going to be bleeding out of the eyeballs. Again, make sure you tune in tomorrow night. Friday Night Spikes going to be electric. And as always, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast where we get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. For Harrison Fant, I'm Chris Phillips. This is The Windup. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we will catch you all tomorrow night on Friday Night Spikes.